Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. The Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 11 o'clock. You're watching GB News. Good evening. The top story tonight, Russia's Federal Security Service, the FSB, has hacked high-profile MPs in what the government is describing as a sustained effort to interfere in British politics. The Deputy Prime Minister saying today that peers, civil servants, journalists and non-governmental organisations have been targeted. It's understood politicians had their personal email accounts compromised. Oliver Dowden saying those responsible will be held to account. And the Prime Minister was busy today defending the government's Rwanda plan, describing it as the country's toughest anti-immigration law yet. Rishi Sunak acknowledged that critics disapproved of the bill, but he said it addressed concerns raised by the Supreme Court. The first vote on the new emergency Rwanda legislation will be put through Parliament next week on Tuesday. At the COVID inquiry today, Boris Johnson rejected claims that he didn't care about the suffering inflicted on the country during the coronavirus pandemic. If you're watching on television, a warning flashing lights are coming up. The former Prime Minister was answering questions about parties at number 10 during lockdown, and he said the idea of mass rule breaking was a million miles away from the truth. He also admitted that a trip to Barnard Castle in 2020, however, by his former chief advisor Dominic Cummings was a bad moment. The Foreign Secretary has been speaking in the United States tonight, urging ministers to approve a fresh package of military aid for Ukraine. It's after US Congress failed to pass an £88 billion package of wartime funding for Ukraine and for Israel. Lord Cameron says blocking Ukraine aid would be a Christmas present to Vladimir Putin and described the response to the conflict as the greatest test of our generation.
I see it as the challenge of our generation. Just as my grandfather's generation had to fight off Nazi aggression in Europe, we are fighting against Russian aggression in Europe. And the challenge, in a way, is a simple one. If you add up the economies of the allies of Ukraine, the United States, the United Kingdom, countries of the European Union, we outmatch Russia 30-1. What we have to do is to make that economic strength count.
Lord Cameron, the new Foreign Secretary there. Now, there was a bit of a drama on the tube tonight. Hundreds of passengers were released, though, from a London Underground train after being trapped for over 4 hours following a power failure. Videos on social media showed travellers stranded in dark carriages using their mobile phones for light. The singer James Blunt was among those trapped and tweeted a plea for pizza, saying it was an emergency. The Transport Secretary Mark Harper said he was aware of a serious incident with a number of trains stationary on the tracks, but as I said, all those passengers now on their way home. And the world's most famous Christmas tree has been lit up for the festive season in Trafalgar Square in central London tonight. Norway has sent a tree to Britain every year since 1947 as a thank you to the British people for assistance during World War II. The traditional 20-metre-high spruce tree is around 70 years old and was decorated this year with energy-efficient bulbs. The tree will remain in place until the 5th of January, after which it will be chipped and composted as it is each year. You're with GB News across the UK on TV, in your car, on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. This is Britain's news channel.
Oh my God, how rude of me. Hello and welcome to Headliners, the second most entertaining paper review show on TV, even though it lasts for a whole hour and has 3 top comedians on it. I'm one of them. I'm Leo Carson. Tonight I'm joined by Steve N. Allen and Cressida Wetton. I notice you're keeping your fingers down.
Yep.
Okay, that's good.
I thought they'd blur it live, but that didn't happen, so oops.
Is it an actual, do you think it's an Ofcom thing to show a finger?
Depends where you
Sounds
put
like
it.
an Iranian rule.
Doesn't it? I think it is, but we're after 9 and before 5:30 for that part of the show.
So fingers,
Do it again. Go on.
Fingers crossed. You see what I did there? Fingers crossed I got away with that. Anyway, that's enough chit-chat. Let's have a look at tomorrow's front pages. The Daily Mail leads with Minister, immoral to threaten jail over the licence fee. The Telegraph has ousting Prime Minister would be insanity, says Tory chairman. The Guardian leads with Sunak fights to hold Tories together over Rwanda plan. The Sun has staff too scared to speak out over Schofield. The iNews has wounded Prime Minister faces growing rebellion. And finally, the Daily Star has, is that a prairie dog and two otters in your pocket, or are you just pleased to see me? And those were your front pages. And let's have a closer look at those front pages, starting with The Guardian, Steve.
They're talking about Rishi Sunak, who I checked about 5 minutes ago on my phone is still Prime Minister, so who knows? And it says Sunak fights to hold Tories together over Rwanda plan. This is fascinating that both sides of the argument are going, no, that's it. We're about to absolutely trash this party if we don't get what we want. Therefore, it's guaranteed destruction. Yeah, so there's no way he can make it through.
So the centrists in the party and the right of the party don't like this plan. I mean, I don't really understand why. Do you understand why?
And it's all about how much you hate the idea of the European Court of Human Rights. Right. You can't totally not have it, otherwise the centrists are out. But you've got to definitely insult the foreigners, otherwise the people to the right don't like it at all. I love the fact that there's a vote on it, but it's not going to be a confidence issue because it doesn't matter why he says it's because you know you'll lose. Rishi. That's all it is. And I also like the idea that, as we saw on the podium, stop the boats. It's all he's put his entire political career on the phrase "stop the boats." Even if you reduce the boats, you wouldn't have stopped them. And it's this thing of politics. I think COVID did it to us. It boils politics down to something that fits on the front of a lectern, like NHS good, death bad. We're not allowed verbs anymore. They think we're that stupid.
Yeah, but I mean, this really is quite a simple issue. People coming across the channel illegally in small boats. I mean, the word is in the sentence. They're illegal. Surely we should be allowed to stop them somehow.
You would think, wouldn't you? And do you remember when he was doing his 5-point plan, he kept saying, test me on it, come back to this later, test me on it, test me on it. And he just looks so stressed. I mean, I almost feel sorry for him at this point.
I think he's going to start saying, do you remember when I came up with that 4-point plan? Everyone remembers the 4 points.
Moving on, what have they got in the front cover of the Daily Mail, Cressida?
Minister, immoral to threaten jail over licence fee. So this is about the BBC licence fee, Leo's favourite topic. It's going up by a tenner. Which isn't as much as they would have liked. Apparently, that's only 6.7%. They wanted 10%, but it's going up. So it's going to be about 100.
I think the BBC ideally would like us to give all our salary to the BBC.
I haven't seen that. Maybe that was in the Express. But you're probably right. I don't know. And the big thing is that it's a sexist policy, because apparently 70% of people that go to prison for not paying their licence fee are ladies. Yeah. So, you know, we can't have that, can we?
Apparently that's because women are in when they come round and knock on the door.
Go to work, it won't affect you. Or just don't be so agreeable, you know, don't let them in. I bet you wouldn't let them in, would you?
No. And if they stuck their fingers through the letterbox, I'd cut them off with a bread knife. It's an absolute nonsense to invade somebody's home, Steve. I'm sure you, as a long-standing BBC employee, will agree with me that this is an absolute egregious tax. It's a regressive tax. Everybody, the rich people, millionaires, pay the same amount as poor people. And the idea, like a TV license, a license to own a television. I'm not trying to explain this to my American friends. They think I've gone mad. Imagine having a license to own a microwave, and all that money that you pay for your microwave license goes to Findus Cuisine because they're the preferred state providers of
He's thought it through.
reheatable propaganda.
As someone who definitely still gets repeat fees and writes some jokes for some BBC shows, no, I totally agree. It's a regressive tax, effectively. It's not calling it a tax. You don't have to call it a tax to insult it. It's regressive.
Yeah.
And even Michael Gray, who's in charge of Ofcom now, calls it regressive. Says we need a discussion. So we will have a discussion to bring a whiff of balance. It would be this is the BBC's agreement. It's not like they want an extra 10 quid. The agreement was freeze it for 2 years and then link it to inflation thereafter. And to be fair, the BBC have come up with some stupid agreements in the past. World Service used to be funded by the Ministry of Defence, and that became something the BBC pays for. The BBC, when they negotiated the thing about the over-75s, idiots. The government used to pay for the free TV licence for the over-75s. The BBC agreed to pay for it for its last couple of years.
Yeah.
So it just got blamed on the BBC. They're cancelling the free... Fools!
So they sort of talked themselves into a corner there.
Yeah.
And the World Service was, it was the one bit of the BBC that I agree with. It projects British values around the world, whereas the BBC in this country seems to project other people's values into Britain.
Although it's not replacement. The thing that goes along with it now is BBC World, and that's the channel. No, we'll talk about it later, but that's the channel where the newsreader did what you did. So that's the values that we're sending across the world right now. Is take a look at this.
It's fingers.
Yeah.
I mean, Cresta, do you pay a TV licence?
I don't. I haven't had a TV for years. But even if I did...
Well, I got a TV and I don't pay the TV licence. That's how much of a rebel I am.
Oh, my
They can
goodness.
come round, try and arrest me, try and come round to my house.
Is this
Go and
all
stick your fingers through the front door.
There was a thing in the article that said that if you watch live TV on YouTube, you have to pay a licence. Good luck working that one. There's no detector van that can spot that. What are you doing?
Well, apparently the detector vans, they don't actually do anything. It's just to, scare people into it, which isn't at all like something that would happen in a Stalinist state. Anyway, what have we got next? We've got The Sun next, Cressida.
OK, The Sun, staff too scared to speak out. So this is about Philip Schofield. Philip Schofield's left, we know he's left ITV, but he's been spotted out today, which I'm sure he's absolutely delighted about. I'm sure he wanted that photo taken. So 48 people were interviewed. There's been a report talking to the staff at ITV, because they're trying to understand, is there a toxic culture? And the review has said, no, there isn't a toxic culture. They talked to 48 members of staff, and only one said they knew about this relationship between Mr Schofield and a younger employee. So the conclusion is it's not toxic, but I don't know. It's apparently the relationship was unwise but not illegal.
What's sort of unwise but not illegal?
There's sort of echoes of Brandon, Louis C.K., isn't it? It's all that stuff, So you end up coming back to the thing about, is it the age of consent or isn't it? And this person was of the age of consent, but people are still not happy because they talk about power and influence, and it all sounds very unwise.
Yeah, and it seems, Steve, as if, ITV, the staff are closing ranks. There's an omerta. I'm not saying that, Philip Schofield still exerts the power of a mafia don, but nobody's willing to, be put into the Witness Protection League.
It's Gordon the Gopher that's got all the power. No one ever talks about it, but he's the secret power behind the throne.
I thought he was the one that spoke out.
How is it possible that only one person knew about this relationship when I knew of this relationship? We all knew of this relationship. I suppose we only knew rumours rather than facts.
Yeah.
But, OK. And the idea that people are too scared to speak out, but there's not a toxic culture. What's a toxic culture, then, other than being too scared to speak out? But the problem is, it's cash cows, isn't it? You've got someone who's making a ton of money for you.
Yeah.
So even if someone comes to you with a complaint, you kind of want the complaint to go away.
Yeah.
Whether it be false or true, you kind of want it to not impact the amount of money you're raking in from your hit TV show. Yeah,
and we see that time and time again. The allegations against people, whether there's any substance to them or not, only come out, once that person has stopped making, once their hit shows have finished, or in the case of Savile, once they're dead.
Wow.
Well, finally, ending this section with a Daily Star, Cressida. What have they got?
OK, is that a prairie dog and 2 otters in your pocket, or are you just pleased to see me? Airport smuggler is caught with half a zoo down his undies. So this is... I don't know if this guy was trying to smuggle them for Christmas presents or something more sinister, I don't know. But the cheeky traveller had also concealed a prairie dog, a relative of the squirrel, but officers did not find his nuts.
Nice.
Are we aware of prairie dogs? You know, you're into gerbils, aren't you? You've got
gerbils. Well, and funnily enough, I used to be into otters. I used to watch otters a lot on the internet until I found out, because they're super cute. But then these otters that you watch, you know, playing with people in their flats and getting fed cat food and stuff, they're taken from the wild. The Southeast Asian clawed otters, they're taken from the wild, and it's not good. It's not, you know, it's not good for the otter. It's not good for the environment. It's probably not good for the person's flat either. Yeah,
I mean, look, a little bit in the defence of this person. It's not like you could go to wherever he was going and buy yourself a prairie dog and a couple of otters there. So of course he was just taking them for personal use.
Right, these otters were just for personal use. That sounds like it makes it worse. Really, when you say it like that. Anyway, that's it for part one, but don't go away. In part two, we've got Russian spies, British terrorists, and another reason to cancel your licence fee. See you in a couple of minutes.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only three people you can trust in life: your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquia, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Ah!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
News Radio.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Leo Curse. I'm still here with Steve N. Allen and Cressida Wetton. And let's get stuck back into the stories, kicking off this section with the eye. And Russia's been hacking the phone calls of our politicians. Who do these Russian spies think they are? Tabloid journalists, Steve.
Very good. Yeah, they've been launching a sustained cyber attack on UK politicians. The Foreign Office Minister Leo Doherty has been speaking about this, and I think the question that's not been answered is, do they have Boris Johnson's WhatsApps? Because they might be the only people who do at the moment, and we really kind of need them. He came across like a 90-year-old trying to set up a Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Do you think some of that could have been, he could have been hamming it up?
Surely
I don't know how to log dialogue into this.
Yeah, about a factory reset. And there's been claims before about Russia and China hacking various ministers. Part of the article does say this is the modern type of warfare, and that did make me think, oh, good, I prefer that one. I don't like the idea of being bombed, and I don't mind if someone's selfie gets leaked in an embarrassing way, so have a slice of that. But it's apparently they've been trying to interfere in our democratic process, and it says here since 2015. Interesting. That doesn't make any sense, because I think since 2015, if anything, this nation is more together, more cohesive, and less likely to rip itself apart, so they want to check that.
Bit of sarcasm there, Cresta.
Yeah, I love the use of the word meddle. It makes it sound like a Scooby-Doo episode. It's nothing serious, it's a bit of meddling. Yeah, I don't know. So the Russian ambassador has been summoned to the Foreign Office to be told these actions will have consequences. Will they? I bet he's feeling pretty relaxed. You know, he hasn't misgendered anybody or anything like that. So I don't know how much. What are the consequences going to be?
Well, yeah,
I don't know.
I take it as read that countries spy on each other, especially countries that are essentially enemies, like China and the West, or Russia and the West. And it does have, even though it seems less lethal than the other type of warfare, like dropping bombs on people. They have in Ukraine. They've hacked Russian officers' phones. They've eavesdropped on conversations, and then identified, staff parades and even sort of staff jollies where all the soldiers get together to watch a show, and then dropped a bomb in them. So yeah, it can lead to the bomb stuff. So yeah, moving on, we've got the Sun now warning of an apparent downside to importing hundreds of thousands of fighting-age men from the Muslim world to Europe. Literally nobody could have seen this coming, Cressida.
Fears a vast Hamas terror cell network will be activated over Christmas in UK and Europe as Israel issues urgent warning. So this is coming off the back of the EU's already warned there's going to be a huge risk of terrorist attacks around Christmas. We just had the incident at the Eiffel Tower, and now Israel has written to 20 European countries talking about evidence of terrorist activity of Hamas in major cities across the continent. And one of the examples in here is the guy who's living in North London in a council house and has been since the 90s, which we did a few weeks ago. Not good, guys, not a good look to have him there. So a lot of the funding...
I think we could probably put a stop to a lot of terrorist networks if we just stop providing council housing to anybody who has links to Hamas or anything like that. I know it's going to, and also it's going to free up half of the council housing stock in London. It's going to be amazing.
Well, yeah, maybe. It talks about funding a lot in here, and a lot of the funding is getting to Hamas through charity. So places, organisations like Charity Association for Palestinian Support, which sounds so nice, doesn't it? Yeah. But it's not.
Yeah. There are two bits in the article. I know it's horrible, and this is not one to make light about, but this is what I do. In the article, it points out that Hamas wants to try and attack the Jewish people and then says there'll be attacks at Christmas markets. Now, I'm not a planning strategist, but Christmas market seems like your stupidest move.
Yeah. Although a lot of Jews do celebrate Christmas.
Oh, yeah, but if you were really trying to maximise your... Just, you Google it.
Don't give them ideas, Steve. Don't give them ideas. Yeah. It's not what we're going to do. Have you both been surprised by the vociferous support for Hamas from certain parts of the sort of left-wing woke community? It's not a community, but these crazy progressives with blue hair.
I was listening to a podcast that Simon Evans was on. It was some other podcast. It makes a really interesting point about one thing that's unique about Israel is that if it does anything militarily, there's anti-Semitism. Yeah. But if Hamas does anything, well, it's not even militarily, a terrible attack, it causes more anti-Semitism. Yeah. How is it always pointing in that direction, regardless of which way you think the violence is going?
Yeah, it's bizarre. Moving on, we've got The Guardian now reporting that inflation was driven by corporate greed. I assume The Guardian is congratulating those corporations for not being greedy during the decades of low inflation, Steve.
Almost. Greedflation, corporate profiteering significantly boosted global prices. I don't know why we'd be surprised. Of course they did. This is what happens. And it's almost our fault for falling for it. We're being told, oh, inflation prices are going up. And they thought, oh, they're expecting prices to go up. Let's put prices up. And then when we complain about it, they say, oh, inflation, without admitting the inflation is caused by the fact they they've just put their prices up. That's like me saying, oh, that pay rise I got last year, it's increased the median wage of people who turn up on TV, so I'm going to need some more, actually, please. Profits rose by 30% amongst the UK-listed firms, driven by just 11% of the firms. And, I mean, the same thing happening in the credit crunch as well. We just get absolutely ripped off for it. But let's go through some of the stats. The profits for ExxonMobil increased to 53 billion. Shell went up to 44 billion. Liz Truss said she'd bring about growth. And it kind of happened for those players. She is also the most successful politician, I just want to say, because she's a Lib Dem, anti-monarchist, and managed to end the Tories and a Queen. So,
harsh, Steve. But, I mean, I think Steve's been a bit unfair here. I mean, ExxonMobil and Shell, these are oil companies. Glencore is a mining company. It's not as if they charged more for their oil. Oil gets sold at a market price. I understand Kraft Heinz, which, you know, is a comparatively much smaller company. They put up the price of their ketchup or whatever.
Well, everybody would put up the price of whatever they sell if they can, wouldn't they? And these are just big companies who've got the best people. I mean, in the boardroom, everyone's looking for the path of least resistance, aren't they? No one goes to a meeting and says, well, we were going to try and increase profits, but actually we thought we wouldn't because it would be nicer for everyone. I mean, it's just, it's the way of the world.
Do you think people should just switch to supermarket own brand ketchup? Because I'm sure Lidl own brand ketchup didn't go up at the same rate or to the same price as Heinz ketchup.
Highly likely, yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, go to Lidl. Why not?
That's the solution to everything. The Mail now with good news for drug dealers and beggars, Cressida.
New FCA proposals will protect access to cash as usage of coins and notes rises for the first time in a decade. Is that anything to do with our Don't Kill Cash campaign, I wonder? I don't know. Apparently people are now using coins and cash a little bit more than they were in 2021, so that's interesting. So the FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority, is proposing new rules to protect people who live in areas where they wouldn't have access to cash. So the idea is that banks and building societies are responsible for identifying the gaps, and then they've got to fill them, which is cool, I guess. I mean, I don't know whether just having a cash point is really the same for, you know, if you're an elderly person, you want to go in and have a chat and do your banking. But it's a step in the right direction, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not just beggars. It's things like this time of year, having to put coins in the Christmas pudding. Yeah. You can't do that with contactless. If you just stand behind someone going beep and they eat it, it's not got the same vibe.
Although there's less chance of choking on an American Express card.
That's the thrill of Christmas, isn't it? Also, you need it for drugs and prostitution, but mainly it's things in puddings.
Although a lot of drug dealers, I've been told, are now using, you know, those contactless readers that comedians use at their fringe shows. Yeah. Although I don't think beggars can have that option because, you know, even if you do have a home to go back to where you can charge it and, you know, you're registered with a bank account and stuff, people giving money will know that. So they're not going to be like, wait a minute, you've got a bank account. You're not as homeless as
Wow, no, I wouldn't have thought that through. I'm not as cynical as you.
Really?
But, good point.
Right. I didn't even think of myself as cynical. Anyway, that's it for part 2. But coming up, we've got the ULEZ Blade Runner starting to use bombs and another war. I thought we had enough of them for now. Anyway, see you in a couple of minutes.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, kicking off this section with The Guardian, Cressida, and Denmark has voted against freedom of speech and expression in favour of diversity and inclusion.
Danish MPs vote to ban desecration of religious texts after Quran burnings. So after months of intensive debate, a bill making it illegal to burn, soil, trample on or cut recognised religious scriptures, including the Quran, the Bible or the Torah, was passed with 94 votes in favour and 77 against, which isn't a landslide.
It was quite close.
Yeah, pretty close. So some people are saying they're criticising that Denmark's motive for doing this is their desire to have a seat on the 2025-26 UN Security Council, and other people are saying it will limit freedom of expression.
Yeah, I mean, this seems like the reintroduction of blasphemy laws.
Exactly.
Steve.
Yeah, it's that weird thing of something that I don't think you should do. It shouldn't be illegal, or it shouldn't be especially illegal. Like, it's a book. Now, I know I'm coming at this from a position of an atheist, so for me, it's just a book. And if you're doing it to clearly offend someone, it's rude. But there's a big jump between rude and illegal. And the only reason it's such a special thing to burn, the only reason that level of offence is taken is because of the belief of the person who witnesses it or hears about it. So you're kind of in part responsible for how offended you are by it. Whereas if you just shook it off and went like, oh, well, I guess you've burnt a book, you idiot. You've not impacted my belief. Then you could crack on with your life.
Yeah, and if, like, you could maybe just, if your religion was secure enough, and if you were secure enough in yourself to see things like that being done, I'm a massive fan of Jesus and Mary Chain, but I don't think, you know, if I saw somebody burning their albums, I'd just think, well, that's a waste of a good album. But I wouldn't, you know, start beheading people.
I completely agree, yeah. And what, I mean, I think I'm a free speech absolutist until such time as I'm talked out of it, but I just can't see... Well, I can't...
People shouldn't be allowed to talk you out of it.
Yes, they should. No, they absolutely should. I appreciate this isn't about speech. This is a gesture, isn't it? They're saying, you know, and we wouldn't allow you to go and, I don't know, we don't allow people to damage property in general, but the point is you can
But this is your own
property.
property. You can damage your own property. And is this, you know, a sign? We've been warned by people on the right, a lot of whom have been dismissed as Islamophobic bigots or racists or whatever. They've warned that the growing numbers of Muslims in Western Europe mean that our laws and our societies will adapt to be more Islamic. And this is an Islamic blasphemy law being introduced in Denmark.
Yeah, absolutely.
OK, well, moving on, we've got the Sun now, and normally I don't like vigilante bombers, but this one is taking out new Les cameras, Steve.
Urgent hunt for vigilante bomber after massive explosion wipes out ULEZ camera amid Blade Runner protests. I take your point that normally explosion's bad, but I'm not a ULEZ camera. So I'm not the target, and I don't plan to dress as one for a fancy dress party. So in general, I'm probably going to be safe with this.
Although you don't know, I mean, Sadiq Khan doesn't really do any consultation before he puts a ULEZ camera in. You could wake up one morning with a ULEZ camera hanging off the side of your head.
Yeah, kind of like, oh, I feel a bit, oh no. But I mean, it is getting different, though. If we've got explosions, there was a transformer from this one that flew off and was lodged in the side of a van.
Well, like a car that turns into a robot.
Yeah, you heard it go.
Amazing.
As it flew through the air. If the van wasn't there, it would have gone into someone's house. Look, I'm not in favour of any of this. I think protest and all this stuff. But don't blow stuff up that could launch a technical unit into someone's house.
I mean, Chris, it does seem like slightly overkill to use a life-threatening bomb to do something that, you could achieve with, an angle grinder.
It's massive overkill. And I don't understand how these people... They haven't found anybody yet. Why aren't people... When they put the ULEZ cameras in, why aren't they putting another camera in to film the ULEZ camera? I find that just extraordinary that no one's thought of that. But it says here, but locals have pointed the finger at London Mayor Sadiq Khan for inviting the carnage onto their doorsteps. And that sort of slightly makes me smile, although I know it shouldn't.
Yeah, well, yeah, they point out, we didn't ask for these cameras here. So now we've got cameras and we've got bombs. We were perfectly happy with things the way they were.
Like having a target painted on your house.
and also, again, I'm not a massive expert in this, but I think if you blow something up, it produces enough particulate matter, carbon dioxide and nitrogen oxides that probably undoes any of the clean air requirements in that area.
Yeah, you could run a 1.2 Astra for several months. For one of those bombs. Moving on, we've got the Times now reporting on a growing inequality between students, and it could hurt the NHS, Cressida.
Cost of living blamed as gap between rich and poor student grows. So there are fewer poor students now. For every disadvantaged student, 2.16 advantaged students were accepted onto a higher education course, according to figures recently released by UCAS. So I mean, it's what you'd expect, really, isn't it, in the cost of living, that fewer poor people would go to university. Having said that, the overall number is still higher. There are still more people from disadvantaged backgrounds going to university than ever before. And they make a particular point of saying that there are fewer people, 10.5% fewer, applying for nursing courses, which, of course, we know we need more nurses, don't we? So this is bad.
Yeah, particularly as the government's immigration rules are going to mean we won't be able to steal them from other countries. I don't know why, Nigeria and places like that have got an excess surplus of nurses. I mean, this article, although they talk about the inequality, Steve, it's really a sign of a lack of inequality, because the wage gap between university leavers and people who never went to university has narrowed over the years.
Yes, and they're not carrying the debt of someone who went to university. I mean, it's changed so much since when I went to university. I think now I wouldn't have been able to go from the background I'm from. And it is a shame. It's one of the few ways to get social mobility. In a country that doesn't have, we can talk all we like about it, we are very much set in the little slice of life you're born into. It's basically going to university or being good at football. And I was not that second one.
You could be good at singing.
Oh, yeah, all right. So there are three ways out of whichever.
Surely we all know nowadays that media studies is a waste of time, and it's better to get a trade, and plumbers earn £1 zillion, don't you think?
Yeah, but there's a difference between saying don't do media studies or film studies or sociology. I could list all the ones I don't like. But proper degrees, I sound like an old person. But no, proper degrees they still have worth. This nation gets better if we're all more likely to invent a thing. Yeah. Or more of us are more likely to invent a thing.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I say that as somebody who studied film and media. So, And then I look at how much my wife earns because she studied law, and I wish I'd studied law. Moving on, we've got the Telegraph now. And are you suffering from war fatigue yet? Well, another one's breaking out. This time it's in South America, Steve.
Yeah, US announces joint military flight drills as Venezuela threatens oil-rich Guyana region. There's an area that Guyana are in charge of it. They're doing the administrative work, and Venezuela make a claim to it. But it is all about oil. Because I guess we're still using a lot of it. It's pretty tasty. When we're all living off wind power, there'll be a war about Seattle. But until then, it's all about this. And, yeah, the United States announced these joint military flight drills. I think the word drills doesn't help if we're panicking about who gets to get the oil first.
They're flying the drills in now.
Yeah, just to get some speed oil. But you're right, we've got enough wars on at the moment. I don't think we can actually mentally have the bandwidth to deal with another one.
Yeah.
So just wait your turn.
Although I get the feeling, Cresta, that this one won't be as intense intensive as the war against Russia, which, you know, used to be seen as the second biggest and most proficient military in the world. It's currently the second most proficient military in Ukraine.
Right. Well, I'm not that familiar with Guyana's military proficiency, but what I will say is there's a great opportunity here. Why don't we send the Just Stop Oil people out there and give them something to do? I think they'd have a great time.
Well, give them some AK-47s.
Well, I don't know, but they'd get out there and stop it, wouldn't they? They'd lie down. Yeah. They'd lie down.
Anyone they go to war with, anyone that Just Stop Oil go to war with, are people who want to get the oil out of the ground. Both sides want to get the oil out of the ground.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the opposite of a peacekeeper. We're just sending in more targets.
Yeah. Okay. Although they'd be war makers, but absolutely terrible at making war. They'd just be lying down in front of the tanks, which wouldn't really work in a war situation. The tanks wouldn't stop. The Mail now, with the shocking news that a quarter of women aged 16 to 24 have been subjected to sexual harassment, which, according to my maths, means that 3/4 of them are too ugly, Cressida.
Nearly a quarter of women aged 16 to 24 have suffered sexual harassment in the past year. Shock figures show. Are we shocked? I feel like we do this story quite often. And, of course, it never begins with a definition of what we mean by sexual harassment. For example, it says here 3/4 of victims were harassed in person, while a fifth suffered online, which is quite interesting, isn't it? I mean... And it's not like I haven't had the occasional inappropriate email from working here.
Sorry.
But you're so lucky we haven't got an HR department. But I don't count that. I think, and obviously I'm a lot older than these women, but I think you've got to be really careful about what gets through the net here. And it says the most common form was classed as inappropriate jokes, comments, or gestures.
Jeez, sounds like
Ladies,
an episode of Headliners.
come on. And then finally here it says 0.7% of women had experienced sexually explicit images being taken, shared, or had the threat to do so. I say that's definitely sexual harassment.
Oh, yeah, and that's a horrible sort of, like a bribery or a blackmailing type thing.
Absolutely. 0.6% had been the victim of flashing, either in person or online. I would say that as well. Obviously, it's not for me to say how hurt individual women are.
Yeah.
I just think we've got to be hot on this. And let's remember that it's not that men in general are doing this. It's like one guy doing 1,000 offences, I think. Not 1,000 guys doing an offence, in my opinion.
There was that Scottish comedian, not me, I should add, he'd done thousands of... He had some sort of mental issue and sent out literally thousands of pictures of his phallus and other people's as well.
The internet as well. I mean, the old days, that would have been like a long wait down snappy snaps. And a lot of stamps as well. Whereas now
if you go back further, I mean, you've got those big plates with the phosphorus flash, and then you've got to stand like maintaining stiffness for several hours while the pattern emerges on the box brownie. It's and then turn up and speak to
I'm
matron
glad you're
Peter.
taking this seriously. Don't you think it's bad though that these young women think they're being harassed when possibly are they?
It's two things. This is the thing that no one will ever agree with. Two things can be bad and one can be worse.
Yeah.
And the one that's worse doesn't mean the other one's not bad, and the one also being bad doesn't mean they're exactly the same. So earlier on, it actually says that they feel upset, distressed, or threatened. Threatened, really bad. Upset happens.
Yeah.
And it might be a valid upset, and it might not be a valid upset. It shouldn't be in the same data set as threatened.
Yeah. One of the incidents that can happen is unwanted relationship attempts. If we keep going down this road, there will be... It's the death of love. It's what it is. We can't be cracking down on men having a go. They've got to have a go.
Men have got to have a go.
Well, there'll be no go.
This sounds like a desperate plea for...
Is there a number that's
moving on.
Anyway, do send your emails and questions in the break. But that's part 3 in the bag. But coming up, we've got the BBC giving us the finger, horrible English food, and even worse, Scottish food. See you in a couple of minutes.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life: your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquia, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's
my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these 3.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners, kicking off this section with the Times, and a BBC presenter is in trouble for giving someone the finger. Takes me back to the days of Savile, Steve.
A BBC News presenter caught giving middle finger live on air. Miriam, bless her, private joke, she said on Twitter. I tweeted about this earlier because I did a screenshot of the thing, and also on the MASH report we did Ellie Taylor doing both fingers. So we win. I don't know why we need to make it a competition. She was doing it as the countdown was going along. Apparently she said she was like counting down from 10 on her fingers, and as a joke did the last one as the bad one.
Right.
She should have known when it was going to end, because countdowns are to tell you when they're going to end. It's a fundamental thing to know. Stop messing around. It's, you know, remember what 1 is on that countdown down to the end of it.
Yeah, and it's a bit worrying that the BBC News presenters have to count on their fingers. I use an abacus.
They should have people for that these days. And it was on BBC World. I love the people online who've tried to get something out of this that it's not. Clearly, it's just a joke between her and someone in the gallery. Timing, the vision mixer or something went early. People online have said, see, look at the BBC's attitude, as if she meant it. It was on BBC World. The same people are upset by this, surely think the BBC loves foreigners.
Well, we can see the video now. That's not it, that's me.
Live from London, this is BBC News.
And Cressida, that's obviously a deep state signal to show the BBC showing how their disdain for the viewers.
Well, this is it. Steve saying there's people online implying that it's sinister. It's us, isn't it? It's us online. That's our job. I think it's very funny. It's funny, isn't it? It's like your teacher accidentally swearing or something. It's brilliant. Why not? More of that, please.
All bulletins should start like that. That would be great, wouldn't it?
I don't know. You've got to use these things sparingly. I tell you what, I'm glad I'm sometimes in the box here. What's it called? The gallery. Thank you. I know how to make television. And I'm glad all the things we say about Lewis Schaefer don't get broadcast, because we maybe have even more Ofcom complaints then. bit of fun, isn't it? Harmless fun.
Yeah, well, we've got the Telegraph now, and McDonald's have looked around and thought, you know what? There aren't enough coffee shops, Cressida.
McDonald's launches new chain to beat 3 p.m. slump, which is so important, isn't it? You know, you haven't bought any food for 3 hours. Quick, what can we do about it? So this new thing is going to... I don't even know how to say this. Is it Cosmax or Cosmuk? I don't...
Cosmic.
That's like the sign of the beginning of middle age, isn't it? I don't know how to pronounce McDonald's new product thing. But
it sounds Russian.
It sounds Russian. Do you think... sounds like Cossack. So they're gonna launch this new thing. It's gonna have all these kind of drinks that are just designed to annoy your dad. It's gonna be beverage-led, selling coffees, as well as specialty lemonades and teas. Well, don't we just need a specialty lemonade? It's sort of open wallet surgery for 3 p.m, I think. I don't know.
I think Cosmic, as we all know, equals adjacent muck over hypotenuse muck. I'm glad we've all got that sorted.
Oh, my God. This is a man who does not need his fingers to count. Bringing in trigonometry.
But you're right. We are living in the fattest period in this country, and I know, let's get more ways of getting food into people's faces.
Yeah.
At 3 p.m, cram it in there. So
and sugary beverages. I mean, if you look around the average high street, there is not a shortage of places where you can get an eggnog latte.
Yeah, I do love an egglog, whatever that one's called. The egglog seems wrong, if anything.
That sounds like the trigonometry again.
Yay, there you go. Should have thought that's good. I'm happy that we've had both trigonometry and logarithms involved here. If we could do exponentials later on, I'll be very happy. I'm probably not. I don't think I've been to a McDonald's in it's probably like 15 years or something now.
Right.
And whenever I've glanced in, they do look fancy. Well, I just realised, there are other shops that do other stuff that's better. They look quite fancy these days. You have to order on a touchpad or something.
Yeah, it's like a massive iPhone that you stand next to and hope that someone will show you how to use it.
It makes you feel tiny, so you eat more. So they get you.
That's clever.
We've got The Guardian now, and for some reason, British people still eat like they're in a medieval nursery rhyme, Steve.
The headline reads, Peas on Toast Trump. And I got that far and thought, oh, what is this story about? That sounds like it's going to be silent but deadly. But peas on toast Trump smashed avocados, UK cost of living bites, says Waitrose. Wait a minute, you're that poor, your Waitrose shop has to change. You're not that poor. You're having Sicilian hand-reared free-range peas on a balsamic... but you know what the people are like. No, if you want to save money, don't just go from avocado to peas, go from Waitrose to anywhere else.
Yeah.
Would be another way of doing it. In the article, it also says that there are people are eating more favourites like chicken Kiev to support the war effort, but searches for vegan air fryer recipes on their website has gone up.
Right.
And I'll be honest, I genuinely, for about 3 days when people were talking about air fryers, I thought it was a joke and it was like air guitar. And I thought it was like, oh, it's really healthy if you use an air fryer. Well, of course it is. And then I found out they are a thing.
They are a real thing.
They are a real thing.
Would you eat peas on toast?
Yeah, probably. Why not? It sounds fine. I've eaten much worse. I mean, that's like a sort of standard student diet, isn't it? Something on toast. Anything that's spreadable on toast.
Yeah.
So peas is fine. Did you know that the UK is 90% self-sufficient for pea production?
Wow.
That's so reassuring, isn't it?
Yeah, so we're not importing our peas from Venezuela.
No, we're not. And I've got a childhood memory of my grandparents growing peas. So it's a very nostalgic sort of thing, isn't it? And I don't know, maybe there's a fashion for that. Apparently, Britons are also finding comfort in potatoes.
Right.
It's like the death of organised religion.
Speaking of comfort food, we've got the Metro now, and Scotch eggs are being promoted on The Simpsons. I hope this doesn't mean that more people start eating them. Where will the next generation of Scots hatch from, Cressida?
Why Scots are finding the latest The Simpsons episode upsetting. It sounds brilliant, actually. So apparently The Simpsons, the family go to Edinburgh for a holiday or something about a wedding, I don't know. And while they're there, the ever-cultural Lisa Simpson decides to do a bunch of stuff, and she's got like a typical American bucket list of stuff she wants to do while she's there. And she ends up at the Edinburgh Fringe. We're familiar with their work. And so she sees it and she says, "The Fringe Festival, a celebration of theatrical irony and self-awareness." lol. Like, it's off to a good start, isn't it? And then she goes over to a ticket booth where she assumes she can buy a ticket for a performance called Musical, the play. But the man inside the booth informs her, sorry, shall I do that? No, I can't. Sorry, darling, that's not Edinburgh, is it? Sorry, darling,
Yeah,
this
everybody
ticket...
in Edinburgh's English.
Right, OK. Sorry, darling, this ticket booth is Ticket Booth, a one-man show about a ticket booth. If you want to buy a ticket for Ticket Booth, the ticket booth is over there. And I thought that was a very accurate representation of Edinburgh.
Quite pithy.
She says, it's so clever without being good.
Yeah.
And she does say that she had a Scotch egg, and which she says, which I very much regret. Yeah. And the article says that some Scots have found it upsetting. I refer you to the earlier point of there's a spectrum between upsetting and threatening, and if you're on the upsetting end, you could easily get over it.
Yeah, although I don't think any Scottish people really were that upset.
Yeah.
I mean, the Scots have never really held food up as, you know, the thing that holds aloft our national heritage. We know it's the worst food in the world. You go around the world, you see Thai restaurants, Italian restaurants. You never once see a Scottish restaurant and go in and eat a deep-fried Mars bar, which is, by the way, the best way to cook a Mars bar. Like, whatever you do. I went on a diet once and I started steaming my Mars bars, and it was...
Use an air fryer. It's pretend thing.
Try cleaning that one. Anyway, the show is nearly over, so let's take another quick look at Friday's front pages. The Daily Mail has Minister, immoral to threaten jail over the licence fee. The Telegraph leads with ousting Prime Minister would be insanity, says Tory chairman. The Guardian has Sunak fights to hold Tories together over Rwanda plan. The Sun has staff too scared to speak out over Schofield. The iNews has wounded Prime Minister faces growing rebellion. And finally, the Daily Star has, is that a prairie dog and 2 otters in your pocket, or are you just pleased to see me? And those were your front pages, and that's all we have time for. Thanks to my guests Steve N. Allen and Cressida Wetton. Nick Dixon is back tomorrow at 11 p.m. with Paul Cox and Lewis Schaefer. Good luck, Nick. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, stay tuned for breakfast. Good night.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening, Alex Deacon here with your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. Today's rain slowly clearing away this evening. Tomorrow a bit drier and brighter in the east, but there will be more heavy showers and it stays pretty blustery. Its eastern areas still very soggy this evening. Still Met Office yellow weather warnings in place. The rain does clear away, all but the far northeast. Some showers come into the west, many places having clear spells overnight. Temperatures dropping to about 5 or 6 degrees in most towns and cities, maybe a little lower in 1 or 2 spots. Could be some mist and fog around tomorrow morning, particularly over eastern areas. A bit of a glum start here, but in eastern England it should brighten up, and then most of the day will be dry here. But elsewhere, expect more showers. Quite a wet day again for Northern Ireland. Frequent showers for Wales, northwest England, and across much of Scotland as well. In the sunny spells in the south, 12, maybe 13 Celsius. Generally a little bit warmer than today, but not feeling all that warm when the showers come along and the gusty winds. Another spell of rain then comes in Friday night and into Saturday. That spreads north during Saturday, lingering over parts of southern Scotland and northern England. The south will brighten up on Saturday afternoon with some decent spells of sunshine, staying mostly dry across the far north, staying quite chilly here, but in the south we should, with a bit of sunshine, get into the teens by Saturday. Low pressure systems continue to bring more wet and windy weather. We're keeping a close eye on this one. Could bring another spell of wet and very windy weather for some on Sunday.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there. with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
And a very good evening. Welcome to Farage here on GB News. It's 7 o'clock and goodness me, another huge day, a lot to talk about. More chaos in the whole Rwanda debate, we'll be getting into that. Boris, of course, has been at the COVID inquiry for his second day of evidence, and a bunch more time and opportunity wasted. Some unbelievable scenes in the United States, anti-Semitism amongst some of the best universities in the States. What is going on over there? And of course, Derek Chisora will be in the studio at the back end of the show to talk about I'm a Celebrity. You will not want to miss that. Loads of that, but first of all, of course, it's the news with Polly Middlehurst.
Richard, thank you. The top story this hour, Russia's Federal Security Service, the FSB, has hacked high-profile MPs in what the government is saying was a sustained effort to interfere in British politics. The Deputy Prime Minister said today peers, civil servants, journalists and non-governmental organisations have also been targeted. It's understood politicians had their personal email accounts compromised, and Oliver Dowden said the cyber attack is a clear pattern of behaviour by Russia, adding that those responsible would be held to account.
I can tell you that a unit within the Russian Federal Security Service, known as Centre 18, has been behind sustained hostile cyber operations aimed at interfering in parts of the UK's democratic processes. This has included targeting members of Parliament, civil servants, think tanks, journalists and NGOs.
Meanwhile, the first vote on the new emergency Rwanda legislation will be put through Parliament on Tuesday next week. The Prime Minister defending the government's plan, describing it as the country's toughest anti-immigration law. He acknowledged, though, some disapproved of the bill, but said it addressed concerns raised by the Supreme Court. The Prime Minister insists the government will get asylum flights off the ground.
This bill blocks every single reason that has ever been used to prevent flights to Rwanda from taking off. As the Rwandans themselves have made clear, if we go any further, the entire scheme will collapse. And there is no point having a bill with nowhere to send people to. But I'm telling you now, we have set the bar so high that it will be vanishingly rare for anyone to meet it.
Rishi Sunak. Now, at the COVID inquiry today, Boris Johnson rejected claims that he didn't care about the suffering inflicted on the country during the coronavirus pandemic, a warning there are some flashing images coming up if you're watching on TV. The former Prime Minister was answering questions about parties at number 10 Downing Street during lockdown, and he says the idea that there was mass rule-breaking at the time is a million miles from the truth. He also admitted that a trip to Barnard Castle by his former chief advisor, Dominic Cummings, was a bad moment. The Foreign Secretary says blocking Ukraine aid would be a Christmas present to Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping. Lord David Cameron, the new Foreign Secretary, has sent a warning after Senate Republicans in the United States opposed a multi-billion-dollar aid package. He urged allies to rally round Kyiv, describing the response to the conflict as the greatest test of our generation, as he delivered a speech in Washington today. It comes as US Congress failed to pass an £88 billion package of wartime funding for Ukraine and for Israel. That's the news on GB News across the UK on TV, in your car on digital radio, and now on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. This is Britain's news channel.
Thank you very much, Polly, and welcome back to Farage here on GB News. Well, another day. Is there much to discuss? Yes, of course, because we've had an emergency press conference. There seem to be quite a few of those recently. What's it about this time? Well, of course, it's about Rwanda. Let me just step back for a minute. How often have you done something for a boss or a friend or a member of the family that you know, frankly, is just a complete waste of time? It's not going to achieve anything, it's unproductive, it might waste a bunch of cash, but you do it anyway. We've all been there. Here's the thing about this whole Rwanda policy, the whole strategy. It was supposed to be a deterrent. But let me suggest to you that actually what it really is, it's just a